Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to build an Adobe URL Builder your marketing team can actually use. But before we get there, we have to start by admitting that a lot of Adobe campaign tracking starts in a spreadsheet. And honestly, it makes sense. Spreadsheet is familiar, it's fast. You write down the rules, a few approved values, and build your campaign URL like I just did here. Now, within our team, we refer to the spreadsheet user group as the version 0.5 marketers because you get beautiful spreadsheets, but functionally the benefit lasts about 5 minutes. It breaks when another marketer or agency uses it, or someone copies an old link, or you get some fat-fingered value, and now your clean spreadsheet becomes a tiny factory for future reporting cleanup, which is exactly what every marketing ops person dreams of doing during their week, right? Now, this is when teams usually evolve. So where do they go to? Well, we turn to public Adobe builders. Now, we call that group the version 1.0 marketer. Instead of starting from a blank spreadsheet, use a structured form that already guides the campaign URL process. So in this form that I'm showing you here, a marketer can use rules and enter the landing page, source medium, campaign name, and other fields to build their URL. The form makes the campaign structure visible. It gives the marketer a fast starting point. And if you only need one link, this may be enough. There's no drama, no spreadsheet name, final version, whatever, right? Just a cleaner way to create the link with some taxonomy and structure attached to it. But if this is for a real marketing team, the public builder is still the 1.0 starting point. The problem is not that the public builder is bad. In fact, if you're currently using a spreadsheet, moving to a builder like this can probably improve your campaign tracking process immediately. The problem is that it does not reflect your organization's Adobe setup or your own standards yet. And that's when it breaks. This is why this site provides different builders, right? It's not that we want to make things complicated. It's just that Adobe makes it sophisticated enough that we have to do this. So quick Adobe refresher. Adobe campaign tracking varies by organization. Some teams use CID, others CCID, some create their own custom parameter. Some might even use UTMs, separate EVARs. It just depends on how Adobe Analytics was configured for your organization. And here's the important part. Your Adobe setup may vary, right? But your team standards should never do so. So our biggest priority as marketers is not just creating a link with specific taxonomy rules, it is solving the harder question, which is, can anyone on the team anywhere in the world create the link the same way every time without turning marketing ops into the cleanup department? So now, let's walk you through building an Adobe campaign URL builder that your team will actually enjoy using. We're going to take this public Adobe builder, let's call this the version marketing 2.0 move, right? Where you're not just creating one link anymore, but we're going to take this and we're going to build the workflow your marketing team, agency, or organization can use every time they need an Adobe campaign URL. So inside this UTM Smart Manager, I go into this template. I see that I like it. I'm going to click here to personalize it for my team and duplicate it. Now here I have my builder, and this is where UTM Smart Manager is different from a basic URL builder. The goal is not just to define the standard, that's table stakes, right? The goal is to make the standard easy for people to use. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add my team's branding. As you can see here, I'm changing this. I'm going to update the layout. I can change the field labels, helper text, and some of the field settings so the form speaks the language my team and agencies already use. Again, that matters because if the workflow feels confusing, people work around it and eventually you end up finding some spreadsheet later on. But when the standard lives inside a clear branded form, the right way becomes the easy way and it's easily adoptable. So the first build step is simple. Let's make the Adobe Builder for your company feel like your team's workflow and not some generic public form. Now that the form is branded and organized, the next step is to control the values people can choose. For this Adobe Builder, I'm going to go into lists and see what public starter values come with the template. And I can see that source, medium, that all aligns with everything that I have. We also added a new field called team, right? So I'm going to go in here because I see that default options for team, and now I need to modify them. So I'm just going to go copy and paste my approved values from this list and in here and done. Now this is where the standard stops living in a spreadsheet and starts living inside the form. Now the marketer or agency does not need to guess, right? They choose from the values your team approved. And if you want to manage values at the organizational level, let's just go ahead and go to SmartLists. And here you see a number of lists where everything that I can change here will be reflected on every form using this list. I can add or remove fields, right? I can add hints, and I can add, more importantly, start and end dates and statuses to each one. So if someone requests a new option in SmartList, I'll get a notification. I will have to click from pending or approve or decline, and it'll be added to the forms automatically. That's the whole point in building an Adobe URL Builder your marketing team will actually use, right? The workflow has to look simple for the person filling it out, but it still needs to have some serious campaign URL controls behind it. Easy for the marketer, controlled by marketing ops. Now the next build step is dependencies. This is where the form can guide the user based on what they already selected. So for example, if someone chooses a certain source, say Facebook, right, we need to make sure that the fields that show up in Medium, for this example, are the ones that make sense for that choice. And look how easy it is to set this up. Now this is what turns this from a basic input form into a governed campaign URL workflow. And if your team needs to create many Adobe URLs at once, it's so easy to implement bulk generation, and it becomes more valuable when it happens inside the same workflow. So all you have to do for your form is go here and click, and that's it. Now the point is not only speed, this point is that many links can still come from the same approved structure. That is much stronger than a separate bulk tool that drifts away from the standard. Now let's talk about the part that teams regrettably miss when they use a public builder, their record, right? A public builder can help you create a link, but when your team owns the workflow, you can keep track of what was submitted and which campaign URLs were generated. And that matters because inadvertently, we as marketers always ask, which link did we launch? Which value did the agency use? What campaign code went live? Which performed best? Right now, instead of hunting through Slack or spreadsheets, you have a centralized record inside the workflow. And that gives you a cleaner operating record of what your team actually launched. So let's just pause for a second. Here's what we've built so far. We started with a public Adobe Builder. Then we turned it into our team's vision and version when we added our branding, updated our layout, added the fields that our team needs, controlled the values through lists or smart lists, and then we added dependencies so the form can guide the user to the next choice. When we are ready to publish it, we created a place where submissions and generated campaign URLs can be saved, right? And now we can generate many links from the same workflow. That is the build. And this is exactly what Campaign URL Studio is. It gives your team a place to turn a public builder pattern into your own campaign workflow, a branded form your marketers and agencies can actually use with the campaign URL controls marketing ops needs. Simple on the front end, controlled on the back end. That's the balance we need to create when we build these forms. And because we at Smart Manager believe so strongly in getting this foundation right for every team, company, or agency, we purposely decided to take all of what you see as advanced features in other URL builders and put them in our lowest plan. So as you build your own campaign workflows, know that you're getting the best and most advanced URL controls offered by our platform from the very beginning. Whether you want to build one Adobe or Google URL workflow per team, per campaign, you name it. Now, some of you may have seen that I have this attachment field in my form. That's because when you jump to a version 3.0 marketer, right, we want this same campaign metadata to be tied to every creative asset, and we have a product called Asset Studio that does that. And that's where the workflow can move from cleaner links to clearer creative accountability. So all you have to do is republish this form with this additional feature. And now every attachment that goes into Asset Studio that is submitted when a link is created is auto-tagged with all these campaign parameters, helping you answer once and for all which campaign creative performed best per these parameters, right? That is what I call the 3.0 nirvana. And that's how you build an Adobe URL builder that your marketing team can actually use. Start with a builder when you need one fast Adobe campaign URL. Go to this site, right? Use it. But when your team-owned workflow is ready, when you need your own branded form, approved values, dependencies, safe submissions, bulk creation, room to grow, you have to go into Campaign URL Studio. The public builder helps you start. The team-owned workflow helps you scale it standard. Now, I'll include the links below to try the free Adobe Builder and see how Campaign URL Studio works, or even Asset Studio, but please feel free to share this video, post any comments or any questions, and we'll keep an eye on it and try to answer them as best as we can. Thanks.